And welcome back to another episode of Voice of Tomorrow podcast. I'm Aaron.
I'm Taylor.
I'm Brooks.
Hey, Brooks. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So, Brooks, Jordan, who are you?
I am a district manager with Wyoming State Parks, and I supervise the parks in the Bighorn Basin, so Buffalo Bill State Park, Medicine Lodge State Archaeological Site, Hot Springs State Park, where we are here today, Legend Rock Petroglyph Site, which is a satellite site just northwest of town here, and Boise State Park as well.
Wow, you're a busy man.
Got my hands full.
And you managed to squeak out some time to be able to sit down today. We're going to talk about the state park here in Thermopolis. We want to talk about the Star Plunge stuff. We want to talk about the master plan. We got kind of a lot on our plate. We don't have a lot of your time. You're a busy man. So
we'll get at it. Yeah.
Let's get at it. So you had a pretty crazy title. You do a lot of things. What is the major stuff that you do that pertains to the state park here?
Sure. So we have staff on the ground here, as we do at most all of our state parks in Wyoming. We have a park superintendent and assistant superintendent, maintenance staff. We hire a great number of seasonal staff as well, including volunteers. So I supervise the overall operations. I directly supervise the park superintendents at all the state parks in my district, including here in Thermopolis.
All right.
How long have you been doing this?
I've been with Wyoming State Parks for, 18 years. I believe. Yeah, right about 18 years. Wow. And I've been a district manager since 2018. So what is that,
About 7 years?
About 7 years, yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's great. I love it.
You love it.
I do.
I have a question for you
Sure.
other than that. I want to know, what is your favorite thing about the Hot Springs State Park?
Wow. I mean, probably the mineral water and just the beautiful views. Of course, the resource here with the mineral water is incredible. It's very unique. You can smell it right now. Love it or hate it, yeah. But and the community too, for sure. It's just a great community, a beautiful park. We have great staff, and I just, I love the park. The buffalo in particular, I love. I used to work at a different state park where we had a captive herd of bison as well. And so when I came up here to northern Wyoming, I was happy to be a part of the buffalo program here. Yeah.
So real quick before we dive too into it, I just have a question. I heard a rumor. I would like to maybe clear this up. I heard a rumor about the buffalo that we're trying to get rid of them because we're putting a big old hotel in the back there. What's going on with that?
No truth to that.
Okay.
Yeah, no, we are proud of our bison program for sure. And it's one of the highlights of the park for visitors, for community members, and yeah, we have no plan on doing anything with that.
Okay. Yeah, because I know I read in the paper that they were up for bid or something like that.
Sure. So we have in the spring, in the winter, typically late winter, early spring, we do put out a number of bison calves and yearlings and that sort of thing for public bid, seal bid process. So that way we can rotate animals through our herd, keep the numbers roughly where we'd like to see them.
I think the issues with the Star Plunge probably didn't help with the rumor mill with the buffalo. So I just had to get that cleared up.
Fair number of rumors.
Yes.
I heard a drive-in movie theater was...
Well, there used to be a drive-in movie theater in Thermopolis.
What?
Way before my time. But, there was a mention of a drive-in movie theater in one of the proposals that we received. That was a part of the RFP that was issued in 2023. And, that was just an idea that got mentioned. We don't have plans, certainly don't have plans. In fact, that was one thing that we heard some feedback from the community on that they weren't particularly interested in. So, it's not anything.
We have a theater.
Not anything we have to pursue, right? I mean, we can throw an inflatable screen up and do movies in the park if we want. Like you said,
that'd be cool.
There's a theater in town already. So if it's not something the community's interested in, then we can just pass by.
Yeah. So not everything in these RFPs are like a mandatory thing to happen.
Correct.
So you can approve an RFP, which is a bidding process.
Yep.
You can approve that, but then be like, well, but this Article A, Article B, we're not enthused with that. Could we not? But overall, we like the bid and we want to accept the bid.
Yes, and we get into the specifics more in the contract. We can really outline things, and we also have the flexibility to manage, with more flexibility. So we communicate with our concessionaires, and if they have an idea, oftentimes they need to run it through us, and we work together in a partnership that way.
So this is a segue. You just gave me a good segue.
Did I?
You did. So speaking of concessionaires,
Sure.
there's the big one, and I want to get this out while we have as much time to talk about it as we can.
Of course.
So
Me, my Uncrustable, and enjoy the show.
so the Star Plunge recently went under a RFP process, and there's a whole lot of stuff going on there. So could you kind of take us back from a little bit of the beginning and how that all transpired, and like what is your angle or what is the park's vision of what happened there?
Sure. I think I'll start with the master plan from 2016.
Yes, that's a good
which
spot.
is kind of the guidebook or menu, so to speak, for future development and improvements in the park. And that was a several-year process that took place and included a lot of community involvement, heavy community involvement. And the plan is, if you've seen it, it's about 2 inches thick, lots of attachments. It's a big PDF file to download, but it is available on our website. So from the master plan, there was, as I said, a lot of community involvement and input, and a lot of different ideas were generated. But the central theme or the main focus of the master plan was to address the concessionaires and concession facilities in the park. That's kind of one of the main drivers in terms of visitation and revenue in the community and for the state in terms of tax revenue, that sort of thing. So the main thing I would say that came out of the master plan was taking care of the concession facilities. Most of the concession facilities here are 50 plus years old. The Plaza Hotel was built in, I think, around 1917, and it's got a lot of historical value. So there's not a lot, we're not going to tear down a historic building to build something new like that. However, other concession facilities have outlived their useful life in terms of functionality, in some ways safety even. So the big part of the master plan was to address those concession facilities.
Interesting. So those concession facilities regarding,
they would include the Star Plunge Aquatic Facility, the TP Pool Aquatic Facility, the Plaza Best Western Hotel, and the Hot Springs Hotel and Spa.
So basically every business and the...
So not the bathhouse?
Well, the bathhouse isn't a concession facility, but it is one of our aquatic facilities for sure. Yeah.
Understood. So the entire park structure is up for redesign due to this master plan.
Yeah, I think there wasn't anything that was off the table. I think there was some ideas that maybe were generated from what I recall that weren't received very well, or that someone has an idea and it wasn't agreed to by everyone. There wasn't a consensus around an idea or a concept, so not everything made it into the master plan that was communicated during that process.
And with the master plan, is there still room for that to be moved, changed, discussed? Is it still a fluid document, or we're talking this is the stone tablet? And
sure, the document is complete. Having gone through the process with the public, and various stakeholders, community stakeholders, elected officials, that sort of thing. So the document is complete, but we still have a lot of flexibility to do things, that fall in line with the guidelines or the recommendations of the document, but of the master plan. But it's, I guess I would just say we have a lot of flexibility still.
okay,
Yeah.
So there's still room to move things around and
Absolutely.
maybe not include a drive-in movie theater,
Right.
That kind of stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So like I mentioned earlier, it's kind of like a menu
Yeah.
of options that were sort of pre-approved or
Okay.
yeah.
What is some of the cooler things, the more bigger scope things that are in that plan that you guys would hope to achieve?
There wasn't anything earth-shattering. As I said, it was kind of taking care of what we have and making improvements to things that are already here, right? There weren't plans to build a big amusement park or a roller coaster.
So we're not putting Disneyland in the state park?
No Disneyland. We want the park to remain essentially something that the community can be proud of and the state can be proud of and have it fit within the community. So,
All right.
yeah.
So, one of the thoughts was that there was a pay to enter into the park. Is that something that was discussed at some point, or?
That's come up a lot over the years, way before my time even, and I think it was mentioned and pretty quickly shot down. We don't have any plans or interest in charging to enter the park.
You hear that? No plans for that. So I know there's a lot of people out there that keep bringing that stuff up. There's no plans to be able to make this an entry ticket thing.
That's right.
Like an admission, paid for admission.
Right.
So speaking of the state, we've heard about how the STAR being closed has affected the tourism in Thermopolis, but how do you think it's affecting Thermopolis, let alone the state? I mean,
there's a lot of things that affect tourism in Thermopolis. Certainly the Star Plunge is one of them, but the other concession facilities, other local businesses, facilities like the Dinosaur Center that had been closed for several months. So there's a lot of things that go into that, and I don't think it's just one facility that affects local tax revenue and visitation.
Is the Dinosaur Center part of the park?
It's not.
Okay.
No.
But they do work kind of in kind, and they try to have input.
Yeah, we have a relationship with them, for sure.
Yeah.
They bring visitors to Thermopolis. We bring visitors to Thermopolis. It's good to share, right?
Right. I like the sharing, especially with my job. And
right.
So
Sometimes.
A lot went on with the Star Plunge stuff. What, in your capacity, what happened with the Star Plunge, and why is there so much? Why is it shut down?
So the Star Plunge had a 50-year lease, essentially, that expired in 2008. And after that, from 2008 to 2018, we were on a series of month-to-month, year-to-year short-term lease agreements, basically.
May I ask why is that?
That's a good question. I think the answer would be we weren't able to come to an agreement for a long-term lease. Yeah. And then there was some legislation that was passed. I believe it was 2019, 2020. I'd have to go back and look. 2019, I think. And it required us, for all long-term concession leases, to use an RFP process, a request for proposal process, where we put out an idea or a concept or a concession offering for bid, essentially. And so we did that in 2020, and we received one bid. I think you're aware of that. And at that time, the RFP was for specific individual facilities, like, tell us what you would do, or we would like you to continue to operate a facility, at one of these locations. So that occurred, and then it was unsuccessful, so we weren't able to come to an agreement from that RFP process. So in 2021, we issued an RFI, a request for information, which is kind of a step back from an RFP, where we weren't asking for specific bids, but we were asking for ideas, so that we kind of reimagine the process. Having it not been successful already, we said, well, we don't want to do that again, right? And have it be unsuccessful again. So we issued the RFI. We received some submissions, some proposals, essentially, about what people that are experts in this field would do, and some ideas were good ideas. So we used some of the information from that RFI to generate the RFP request for proposal that we issued in 2023, and that was sort of reimagined as more of a broad scale, multi-location proposal.
And so, because that proposal process failed, we had to close the doors of the Star Plunge.
No, not exactly.
Okay.
So the Star Plunge's lease, as I mentioned, their original lease expired in 2008. And then we were on those kind of handshake agreements, short-term management agreements, but their actual concession lease, official lease, expired in 2008. And those short-term agreements that happened subsequent to the first lease also expired. We renewed, and let me get my timeline straight. 2021, I think, was the last one that we signed. 2022, that expired on December 31st of 2024. So just at the end of last year. and that short-term management agreement expired. And one of the terms of the original lease and pretty much all of our concession leases is that the concessionaire has the right and the ability to lease a location and operate, construct a facility, operate a facility, and recover their investment and make profits during the term of their agreement with us. Mm-hmm. That's a pretty standard thing that's taken place for many, many years here with the concessions. So that last agreement expired at the end of 2024, and we had an incoming concessionaire that we had awarded the bid to that came out of that 2023 RFP. Mm-hmm. And they were ready to take an approach to the concessions that included, substantial redevelopment and reconstruction of a lot of different facilities at different locations in the park.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And so that was the Wyoming Hot Springs LLC. I think that was
the gentleman that bought the TP, or
correct.
Mark.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. It'd be, hey Mark, we'd like to get you on here too. And so they were awarded the TP through the RFP process.
No, they bought the TP
They just bought
from the
it
previous owner.
Oh,
yes, that was a private, business to business transaction.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that occurred in November of 2023, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, that happened a lot later than I thought that did. I thought that was more recent. Goodness.
Well, 2023 is not too far.
I also was gone for a year. I was not in the office at the time, so it might have been.
Yeah, the time stopped. Right?
Yeah.
So the RFP process for the Star Plunge kind of falls through, it sounds like. And then the state park doesn't want to, if I'm saying something wrong, we could definitely rebuttal that.
Oh, yeah.
So it seems like the state park doesn't want to reopen the Star Plunge, at least for the tourist season that we have here in the summer and things. And is there any way we could come to some sort of agreement or system or third-party entities or something to be able to keep that going, at least for the sake of the tourism and the sake of the town?
Sure. Yeah, we'd like the Star Plunge to be open, and I think it would be open if it weren't for the litigation. We had an incoming concessionaire. We had an incoming concessionaire ready to operate a facility, an aquatic facility at that location, and start to redevelop that. But we're prevented from doing that.
You can't touch the building until that's solved.
Well, we don't own the facilities there. So that's not ours to dictate. Who gets to use it or who owns it. However, the requirements of the original concession lease and all the subsequent management agreements included language that required the improvements to be removed at the end of the agreements. And that goes back, all the way 50 plus years and even longer. So all these concession agreements require that, the buildings have lived their useful life and it's time to build something new that'll last another 50 years. And that's been the same with all of our.
So
that's a lot to unpack.
So it's basically we just want you to essentially close for a while, redo the building, and then you guys are good. Is that what I'm getting, or am I kind of misunderstanding here a little bit?
I think that's pretty close. We don't want anyone to be closed. In fact, we just recently met with Star Plunge ownership and offered them the opportunity to open under third-party operation. Yes.
So that's a thing that could be happening soon?
It could. We don't have a timeline, but I think the ball's in their court right now. But we'd like to see it open.
And what would be the requirements for a third party?
I don't have specifics on that. Yeah, I don't.
So they couldn't just be...
They'd have to have some experience operating a plot.
Okay. You can just bring in
Sure.
the local group of teenagers and have them run it.
Right.
Yeah. Some sort of management entity that could maintain something like that, but
sure.
that wasn't directed in relation to roll in the concurrent ownership or a newer prospect ownership like the Wyoming LLC.
It could be someone that could be an incoming concessionaire, but yeah.
Oh, so the Wyoming Hot Springs LLC, they could be the third party.
Potentially.
even though they're the ones that had won the previous RFP process.
Correct.
Okay.
So my question is, how would that make them third party if they're the ones that we're trying to?
Well, I think there's some separation, right? They're not involved in the litigation.
Okay.
So the two parties are the C&W Enterprises, the Star Plunge, and the state of Wyoming, and they're not.
That's the litigation battle.
Gotcha,
So third
okay.
party would be the potentially new owners of the facility. Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, to say they would be the new owners of the facility, I don't know if that'd be completely accurate, because, part of the RFP is that we ask them to redevelop, potentially rebuild. In fact, we would be fine with reconstructing an entirely new facility there. That's kind of what we're doing.
So you would be okay if they completely leveled the building and the structures that are there currently to build a completely new facility? Yes. I mean, you can see where there's a lot of tension in that, because that building's been around for 1975.
It has.
But that's the point, though, is the fact that it's been around for so long, and having a building where there's a lot of condensation and the heat and stuff, I could in a sense understand why.
If you have a 100-year-old house, you can only put new shingles on for so long.
Exactly.
Before it still just
Right.
looks like an old house. With new
And
shingles.
everyone that enters into one of our concession agreements knows that going in, that there's a lifespan to the facility itself. So and as I mentioned, those agreements require that the improvements be removed at the end of the contract term. So it's kind of already understood.
Yeah, it's in the writing. You got to look at it a little bit in order to. I don't want to step on anything again, but so the part of the problem was that I've understood with the RFP process was that there was the current owners bidding against other outside entities, the non-current owners, and those non-current owners would have to pay a concessions fee to the previous owners, aka Roland and the Star Plunge ownership now, and that equaled above $1 million or so is what they were valuing that at, and that would mean that anyone else that was trying to acquire it over the current owners would have to pay an extra price tag that was quite substantial and was often discouraging other bidders and stuff. And so it sounds like in the most recent RFP, is it the 2023 RFP process, that section that said the compensation to the previous concessionaire was omitted, but by state law it should be in there. So are you able to talk on why that was removed, or if it's not removed, or how that goes?
Sure. So we have concession rules that set forth guidelines for when we issue RFPs and the concession renewal process or new concessions, everything relating to concessions. We have rules for those. And I think what I can say is that, we tried that with the first RFP and it was unsuccessful.
Mm-hmm. So it was just a rule, like a guideline?
Yes.
Kind of like the Pirates Code. That you were supposed to compensate the previous owner. So in my research, it often spoke as if it was in the law. And granted,
yeah, it's chapter 10 of our state parks concession rules.
And it's concession rules, and not abide by it in the law. And I guess the kind of the way you were saying that if it was valued at $0, then that would still be, it would then $0 would be it. And so like if the building itself needed to be completely removed and all this stuff, then there would be no value to keep that. Yeah, it's nothing to pay. If in fact you'd have to pay to remove it,
right,
which causes a different kind of bill. But
right.
So is it like you're not sitting here saying that the Star Plunge as it is now has no value to the park? Oh,
right.
So there's some sort of value, but we're not saying that there's a $0 value for the property. Well, not the property meaning the structures on top of the land, because the land is what you guys are able to control, right? But you're not able to control the facility necessarily itself.
The facilities, according to all the agreements, were required to be removed. So
Gotcha.
I mean, if people can determine a value based on that, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So And that's where a lot of the litigation probably comes in play.
Yeah,
Like,
we're getting close.
yeah, so, we're flying close to the sun here, and so, like I said, if you can't say something, we could step off, or you can say you can't comment. But I wanted to. This is the information that people are often misunderstanding or misknowing of that kind of thing. Is as this whole like the Star Plunge. We want it open so bad. It brings in a lot of people to our town, and we're trying to bolster our other amenities or other things in town. Bring in more events. We have Discovery Days coming up. Please check that out. It's going to be
Discovery Day.
It's going to be so cool.
And I mean, we've discussed that a lot on our podcast too. Was that there's more to Thermopolis than just the Star Plunge.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not saying that the Star didn't bring in a lot of business, because it does for sure, but. I mean, you have, like you were saying, you have the Buffalo, you have the swinging bridge over here. I mean, the TP, there's so much more to do.
Miles of trails.
Yeah, which is all part of the master plan as well, right? Developing trails.
Those were significant.
Which is cool. I've done the T Hill Trail probably a dozen times. Close.
I have never, because.
It's a nice walk. It's beautiful. You need to see the whole town once you get to the top.
I can do that driving up to Round Top.
So, okay. I'm trying to find out an angle or like how to bring up some more of this stuff, because I want to just make sure that it's really clear what's going on. So we can't open up the Star Plunge. We could open the Star Plunge up if it was agreed upon by the state park and by the current concessionaire for
former concessionaire.
Former concessionaire. For a third party.
Yes.
So if everyone can agree that Joe Schmo over there can run this place, we could have this place open.
Yes.
But so I guess the next question is hold on, I had it. Give me a second. Whose idea? I have it. Hold on, I remember.
Yeah, let's bring up. We have a couple questions.
Who made the official call for the Star to close? Was it the state? Was it the courts? What?
Well, their agreement expired.
So the handshake agreement ended in December. We said 31st.
Yeah, and then we offered an extension to allow for some time to see if they can negotiate an agreement that would allow for the potential incoming operator to come in and operate the facility. So, but the agreement expired, so that's why it closed, and then also the litigation is part of that.
So you chose to not do any more short terms because of the litigation. And so if the litigation, it's hard to help someone out when they're suing you, right? Like it's hard to do favors for people when they're actively suing, putting legal stipulations on, actions on you. So I don't see too much of fault in that. Like if I was being sued for something, I don't want to exactly turn around and invite him to dinner. So, man, you had the question there, and then I wanted to bring up upon that.
Sure.
The official decree to close the pool. Man, there was something more I had in line with that, but so what would be the ideal outcome for the Star Plunge arrangement? If you were able to just I don't know if you can talk about it much, but like if everything was up in the air and you're able to make the big picture, how would you like to see that play out?
I think it's bigger than the Star Plunge.
Sure.
So, I mean, I'd like to incorporate all the concessions in the park as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
We'd like to move forward with recommendations from the master plan. We'd like to move forward with improved, renovated, reconstructed facilities that are going to serve the community and the visiting public and people that travel to and through Thermopolis. We'd like to see that happen. So that's kind of the horizon for us.
So all aquatic facilities being largely upgraded.
Yes.
You'd like to see the hotel amenities being more robust.
Absolutely, conference center, so that Thermopolis can have a facility that can host conferences, and a couple hundred people can come, have a conference, spend their money, get Comic-Con, sure, yeah. But that's something that has been part of the thought process too.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about the addition of any new structures or any major changes in that degree?
Yeah, nothing comes to mind. We've got a lot of improvement projects going on in the park that are scheduled for this summer, over $1 million worth of stuff. Road projects, there's a new boat dock facility that's in the works.
Finally, heck yeah.
Yeah, so
I'll
that's
never
exciting.
forget that.
Yeah. Let's see what else. Some infrastructure related stuff, but as far as new big buildings, nothing that's planned that's not, within an existing footprint, I would say.
Not like a castle in which that we would use for a logo.
No, the entry arch was probably the
That's
closest thing to that, and that was part of the master plan too. And that project was completed a few years back, but it kind of gives you a sense of arrival and significance when you enter the park. So that was a pretty cool thing to see.
I just have to say that art is gorgeous, but it bothers me how off-centered it is.
Is it offset?
No way.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, like because if you look at it, you got the road and then like it's centered. It's not allegedly. You're going to drive by and I'm going to show you. But like, so you got where the center of the road kind of, and then the bridge to get down into it is kind of off-centered.
Yeah,
so it doesn't sit like.
We're kind of hemmed in by the railroad
Right.
a little bit there too, and we're working with the railroad on a project that will hopefully result in some beautification of that undercrossing there, that bridge. It could use some TLC. So
Sure.
we're working through that to try to beautify that.
I feel like it's pretty sketchy when you're walking there. But I mean, it's still nice because, of course, the park is gorgeous and everything. So,
I know. I'd say we got a beautiful view right now.
I wouldn't be surprised if I saw like graffiti, in there because it's just like that. It feels so.
There's be cool if we could do a mural or something. See those in Billings. There's some murals in the undercrossings, bridges around town there, and just make it prettied up some. Right?
I think you should talk to Joe Moon.
Okay.
Oh,
He did that big Thermopolis mural
Okay.
down there by the police station.
Yeah, that'd be great. We might be able to put that out for bid, or if we get to that point,
that'd be cool.
yeah, have an
I believe Joe did that anyways. From what of my understanding, I think he did.
Right, allegedly.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, maybe Joe would be the guy to talk to. Joe Moon.
So over the last couple years, there's been a large decline in tax revenue and stuff from the state park. And of course, with the closure of the Star Plunge currently, that's not helping anything. Do you have any insight into that?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd classify it as a large decline in tax revenue. You shared some numbers with me last night,
Right?
pretty late. I looked at them.
I'm sorry.
Something didn't quite. No, that's fine. Something didn't quite seem right. You've got them listed as Q2, so but we're still in Q2. And the numbers that I saw for 2025 weren't, I don't think they were quite right.
Right.
So there has been a decline in lodging tax revenue a little bit. But I don't think it's, you could attribute it to any one thing. There's been a number of different things in the community that could affect that and across the state. We get numbers regularly from the Wyoming Office of Tourism and the state local version that handles the lodging tax and receives the lodging tax. In fact, I got some numbers yesterday from our superintendent who serves on that board. And the numbers, just for last month are more than what the numbers were in the info that you sent me. So
correct.
We might have to go back and take a look at that and just see. The numbers have declined a little bit, but our goal and the vision for the future is to try to make sure that those ramp up, and that we're doing things here that can affect that in a positive way.
Of course, we all want to make money.
Sure.
Makes the world go around a little bit. So is there any last things you want to let the town of Thermopolis know? You want to be able to speak out and have that put out there? What is what is the kind of your coup de grace? What is the what would be the most servicing to the people here at Thermopolis?
Yeah, I think we're here to serve the community and the state of Wyoming and the visitors to the park. We've been a part of the community for a long time, and we're pretty comfortable in that role. We have quite a bit of support in the community, actually, from local officials and also from community members, business owners. But I think what's important is that we're looking at this in the long term, that horizon that I mentioned earlier, where we want to do what's best for the park, for the community, and for the state of Wyoming, and that includes, a lot of renovation, reconstruction, and improvements with our concession facilities, but also some projects in the park, like I mentioned, with the boat dock and some road improvements and some things like that. So,
Big things coming.
I think so. Yeah, we're excited about it, and I think right now isn't where we want to be exactly, but we're still looking ahead to the future and want to see these improvements take place and for the benefit of everyone.
Well, that's all I have, really.
Yeah.
Wow, we still have like 5 or 10 minutes.
I know.
I might have one more question.
I wanted to, I really
See if
appreciate your time.
I've got some notes too.
Yeah, you got some things you wanted to point out for me.
Nothing really specific, but I'll do a quick scan.
What's your favorite hobby?
Wow, my favorite hobby.
Fly fishing?
No, I mean, I used to fly fish.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm big into, I don't know, I'm really obsessed with music, live music production, and yeah, it's kind of something I'm into.
Music production. So you're not the guy making the music necessarily, but you're dialing in and
Yeah, I do a little bit of that.
sounds.
Yeah.
What do you think about AI and how it's kind of taking over a lot of that?
Well, AI is a very useful tool, and I hate to see it infiltrate the art form of music and other art, but I think as a tool, it's very useful.
True.
It did make a good song for us, though.
Yeah.
It did make a good song. The opening and closing song was
Really?
done by AI for us.
Cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was kind of fun with my son one night. We took a few hours and we just started making AI music with the program that we used. And it was a lot of fun to just kind of play with this chorus and play with this sound and try to get things dialed in using it, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But I think there's so much to say about the physical art form of music, and so I'm still I'm not giving up that. But maybe that's the old man in me.
Sure.
I just watched The Terminator too much to really trust AI.
That's good.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah.
It's my pleasure.
And maybe we'll bring you on again another time. See how it goes. And if you guys want that, you want to hear more from them, and you want to have this be something more regular or something, let us know. We'd be glad to be able to start setting things up like that with a lot of these people here. So thank you very much, Brooks, for coming on here.
Yes, Brooks, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course.
That's another episode of Voice from Up Podcast.
Bye, guys.
Appreciate you guys. Bye.
Dusty boots on a wooden floor. Small town nights we crave for more. Fiddle cries and the banjo hums. The party starts when the night becomes